Hello everyone, today's video is specially dedicated to my friend Matt Marty and a guy on Facebook called Brad Miles, who have both requested me to make a video about hammer eye and top tool drifts. That is a topic that is both very simple and very difficult. Why is it both simple and difficult? Because if you understand the principles behind it and you know what you're doing, it's actually a very simple task. You know, it's basically just making a taper and flattening it out. But if you don't know how to draw this taper in this material, it's going to be a pain in the butt. So I'd like to cover everything important to know about it in this video. Tools that we're going to need are hammer, anvil, a good hot fire, and in addition you need a it's like very beneficial to have some sort of measuring device, so either a set angle or a ruler. Stock material will be this 1-inch round 4140, and I would strongly recommend you to use a similar type tool steel. This one is, I bought this one, so I know it's 4140. You can take scrap, for example, sucker rods, from those oil mining companies. What will also work are car axles, machine axles, whatever, or spring steel should also work fine. The reason why we need to make them from tool steel is because all that a drift actually is an anvil that is going inside the eye of your hammer or your top tool. Many people confuse this with a drift that you use to drift open a hole in an artist blacksmithing type of work, and actually a drift in that case is not a tool that you will use to size your hole to a certain dimension to fit some sort of handle. This doesn't work really the way at least I'm doing it. First of all, we will measure off 4 inches, respectively 100 millimeters, for our material, like this. And what we will do is we will take the round stock and we're going to forge it, turning it 60 degrees with every blow. So we are going to end up with a rough hexagon, which is going to look somewhat like this. If we have it tapered this way, we are going to hit 30 degrees, so always on these round sides, so that it's going to be a true hexagonal taper. I must admit I'm not very good at sketching stuff. And then we're going to break the corners and make it round again. And then we're going to flatten it out so that it's a taper in both ways. And it's going to be also oval shape. So top and bottom are flat and the sides are round. And it's tapered both ways, this way and that way. So take your time to measure off the proper amount of material. Start with your flat face and just go ahead and make your markings. Go 30 degrees. You want to keep this at a very low angle, and the start is not very steep, so I don't have to change dimension a lot here. This is why I'm using my flat face and really taking my time to get that hexagonal shape. So now I'm going to heat this up to a really nice and squishy heat, and I'm now going to taper this, keeping a low angle. This time I'm going to use my round die. And make this a nice taper. Low angle needs to be a gradual taper. You don't want it to be like extremely pointy. You want it to be a long taper. And don't go much further when it's at that heat. You know, that's 1-inch tool steel. If you just get that bright orange microwave heat, you can forget tapering that by hand. So make sure to use a few more heats, use a little bit more of your muscle power, and let the heat do the job. Okay, if it starts to develop a step like here, if this blob is forming, you have to, process it down a little bit first. Break it down. And now taper it in. You just keep tapering and tapering and tapering, and not doing this two-part method. You're actually going to get way too thin here and just developing a blob there. So I'll go over it again and break it down all a little bit thinner. So the tip should be around 10 millimeters. It's like 5/8 of an inch. And now taper this on until this is a gradual taper. I'm staying at a low angle. Now I'm using my flat die to blend the taper in. Can you say that? Blend the taper in? Blend in the taper, I think it rather is. Oh well, English is not my first language, so who cares? Some of you might ask yourself, why are we doing this as a hexagon? The reason for that should be actually quite evident. You can see already almost a finished taper in the hexagon. If we were going to forge this square, we would have to break up a lot of material to get it round. So you might end up messing up the dimensions if you do it square. That's totally possible. I used to do that a lot. But if you can get yourself to forge it as a hexagon, it's easier for you to keep the angle correct. If you simply can't do it, like absolutely not able to forge a hexagon, you can do it square. Just be a little bit more careful with your dimensions. This way makes it easier to see if your taper is right and if your diameter is still not too thin or not still too thick. You don't have to make the hexagon that perfect. I just wanted to do it for demonstrating purposes, so you can see how it should look like. This little bit of fish mouthing there is because I was a little bit too hasty in breaking that blob down. You can prevent this also by making a clean cut to the center, but I'm anyways going to cut this off and then it's going to be fine. Now this starts in the parent stock, starts to taper very, very slightly and continues at the same angle. This is very important. It's not going to be convex, it's going to be just straight and gradual. So now I'm going to break the corners and then completely take it to round. Do this, make sure that you clean off your anvil regularly, so you won't get any scale pitting. You want this to be a very, very clean taper. So, blanishing this taper can also be a pain in the butt because this radiates a lot of heat, and since you're not lifting your arm so high anymore, you're burning your knuckles a little bit because of the radiant heat. But that's just something you have to deal with. This is also the only time when I will sometimes put my thumb on top of the hammer handle. This makes it a little bit easier to just, planish it. If you notice that you need to, move a little bit more material to get some pitting out or something like that, get the steel hot again and then do it. Don't try to bang the cold steel into some sort of new shape. That won't work. You can planish at black heat, but you shouldn't, take out real ridges or something like that at that temperature. Just get it hot a little bit more. Go back over it. make sure to straighten it while it's still round. It's really, really hard to straighten it when you flatten it. So now this is how clean your taper should look like and how much it should taper. Okay, the next step is not really necessary, but it is beneficial to separate your taper, so your actual drift material, from the handle. If you don't have some sort of spring fuller or a guillotine tool or top and bottom fuller and a striker, you can leave out this step. It's just beneficial but not a necessity. Look where your parent bar ends. Just leave like a finger of parent bar before the taper starts. Okay. Now we can flatten it out, and then the actual drift part is already finished. Turn it with every blow so no surface is bearing on the anvil for too long. Now you can angle your hammer with the taper. And also here, the two main principles: do it with heat and make sure that your anvil is free of some sort of thick pieces of scale or something like that, so you don't hammer that directly into your workpiece. So now that this is a taper how I want it, this way and this way, we're going to measure off just about under a foot, like 250 millimeters. Maybe a little bit less, like let's see. Yeah, I'd go for 23 centimeters. You want to be a little bit, you know, generous on this, because if you have like a huge chunk of glowing steel here and your holding is up here, you want to have some distance between the steel and your hand. So take a good amount of steel for your handle. So now here comes our hexagon again. Hit once, turn 60, hit twice, turn 60, 3 times, and now turn 30 degrees every time. So, now I've extensively shown you how to forge these. Just a few tips for the finishing of these drifts. Make this a very sharp corner, so that if your plug is stuck, you can shear it out with this sharp corner. These two drifts are going to go to a Dutch customer, Toyner. Now you saw how your drift was made. I made this prior to this one, after I made the intro. That's why the sun was already set when I continued making this video, just so in case you wonder why it's so dark in here. These usually should take about half an hour if you have practiced a little bit. So not a lot of work, quite a lot of material. Takes some practice, but it's doable for everybody. So this is a starter drift, or a drift for very small top tools, usually the ones you would forge out of 1-inch steel or even smaller. So this is made from 20 millimeter. It's like 5/8, I think. I'm not entirely sure with Imperial system. And you would continue with this one as soon as the tool reached this top here. So you start with this. When it reaches this point, you switch to this, and normal top tool should be finished about here. And on a hammer, if you have to open up the eye a little bit, you use this starter drift, and then the hammer should end up there when it's done. So I hope you guys can now forge your own drifts, and I wish you a good time. Have fun forging, and we'll see us in the next video. Bye!